In the world of sports, you got these superstar athletes who think they can just step into a coaching gig once their playing days are over. Everyone assumes that with all that talent, skill, and street-smart knowledge of the game, they'd be able to lead a team to the promised land, right? But here's the kicker. It doesn't always work out that way. Take Wayne Gretzky, for example. The guy who's basically the Michael Jordan of hockey, the greatest to ever lace up skates. But when he hung up his own jersey and took the reins as the Arizona Coyotes coach, that was a real shit show. A measly .417 win percentage after 4 seasons. Yeah, the great one couldn't even get the Coyotes to break even. Now flip that around. You got these guys who weren't exactly superstars back in the day, but somehow they turn into these legendary coaches, leading teams to the top and bringing home championships. It's like the ultimate underdog story, right? You just never know in this crazy world of sports. And the NFL? Oh, it's no stranger to guys who were just okay or flat out mediocre on the field, suddenly turning into coaching savants. You've got these players who maybe weren't lighting up the scoreboard or racking up Pro Bowls, but somehow they find a second act on the sidelines. It's like they switch gears, and out of nowhere, they're leading teams to Super Bowls. It's one of the quirks of the game, really. Guys who couldn't make a dent as players end up making all the right calls as coaches, while some of the biggest names to ever play the game can't quite translate that on-field brilliance into a winning coaching record. It's friggin' wild. So let's take a stroll down memory lane and break down how some of these so-called average NFL players ended up being some of the most successful coaches in the game. We're talking about guys like Sean Payton, Tony Dungy, Todd Bowles, Tom Landry, players who at the time didn't exactly knock it out of the park as athletes, but turned out to be heavyweights in the coaching world. Let's take a look at Sean Payton. Unless you're a New Orleans Saints fan, you might think Payton's a friggin' loser. But come on, the guy's career is a wild ride. Sean Payton was far from a star quarterback during his playing days. Matter of fact, you could say he was more of an afterthought. Payton got his shot in the NFL during the 1987 players' strike, but it wasn't exactly the stuff of legends. He played in 3 games that season, completing a miserable 34.8% of his passes, throwing 1 interception and no touchdowns. Yeah, not exactly a stat line to hang your hat on. After that brief and unimpressive stint, Payton's playing career took him overseas to a short-lived run in an international football league before he eventually returned to the States. But here's the twist. He wasn't done with football. Instead of hanging it up, he took a shot at coaching, landing a job at San Diego State. This is where Payton's real story begins. It wasn't his playing career that set him apart, but his ability to see the game from a different perspective and start building the foundation for a coaching career that would go on to change the NFL forever. Everyone remembers the Bounty Gate scandal, right? Sean Payton ran a slush fund where players were paid for big hits. Yeah, you heard that right. In the middle of all that controversy, the Saints somehow went on to win a Super Bowl in 2009, bringing a long-awaited championship to New Orleans. But that Super Bowl win? It came during the very period when the whole bounty scandal was brewing behind the scenes. And then, of course, the whole thing came crashing down. The bounty program was uncovered, and Payton got slapped with a 1-year suspension for the entire 2012 season. It was a major hit to his reputation, but let's not kid ourselves. He still built one of the most dynamic offenses in NFL history, with Drew Brees lighting it up year after year. Despite the scandal, Payton's ability to keep the Saints competitive and win that championship is a big part of his legacy. Payton would return to the New Orleans Saints in 2013, taking back the reins as head coach after serving his year-long suspension. He held that position until 2021, guiding the Saints through some ups and downs, but always keeping them in the playoff mix. His tenure saw the team remain a legitimate contender, and he continued to show his offensive genius, especially with Drew Brees leading the charge. But in 2021, Payton shocked the football world when he announced his retirement from coaching, leaving a huge void in the Saints organization. However, Payton's retirement wasn't as permanent as we all thought. Just 2 years later, in 2023, he returned to the sidelines in a big way, accepting the head coaching job for the Denver Broncos. A lot of eyebrows were raised, especially after the Broncos' underwhelming performances in recent years. But with Payton now in charge, he has led them to their first winning season since 2016, while also leading them to the playoffs for the first time since 2015. If he can continue to work his magic in Denver the way he did in New Orleans, Payton's resume will continue to grow, and he'll cement himself as one of the most impressive coaching figures in NFL history, no matter what happened in the past. It's a fresh start, and Payton's out to prove he's got a lot left to offer. So yeah, Payton's career isn't without its skeletons, but let's not overlook the fact that he turned the Saints into a legit powerhouse and is now turning the Broncos organization around for the better. The guy's a genius, even if he did get caught up in one of the dirtiest scandals the NFL's ever seen. Tom Landry's story is one of those that really flips the script on what we expect from players turned coaches. On the field, Landry was a solid defensive back for the New York Giants. But let's be real, nothing about his playing career screamed future Hall of Famer. He wasn't a flashy playmaker or a household name. He wasn't the guy lighting up the scoreboard or grabbing headlines every Sunday. But Landry had something else, something deeper, that would eventually change the face of the NFL forever. After hanging up his cleats in 1955, Landry transitioned to coaching, and that's when things really got interesting. At the time, coaching was a whole different beast, but Landry wasn't your typical coach. He was a visionary, a mind who could see the game through an entirely new lens. He joined the Dallas Cowboys as their first head coach in 1960, and from there, he didn't just build a team, he built an empire. Landry's teams weren't just good, they were innovative. He took the Cowboys to 5 Super Bowls and won 2 of them, carving out a dynasty that would become synonymous with success. What set Landry apart wasn't just his ability to motivate or his leadership on the sideline. It was his genius in strategy and his willingness to adapt. One of the things that defined his coaching legacy was his development of the 4-3 defense, a revolutionary move that changed how defensive football was played. Before Landry, defenses were often a mishmash of schemes, but he structured his defense with a clear purpose and balance. 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. It was a system that gave his defense flexibility and allowed them to pressure the quarterback while still covering all areas of the field. This strategy would go on to become the foundation of most NFL defenses for decades. And it wasn't just his defense that was groundbreaking. Landry was a master of adaptability. His offensive game plans were just as meticulous, and he was never afraid to adjust to the changing dynamics of the game. Whether it was adjusting to the evolution of passing offenses or shifting strategies to exploit the strengths of his roster, Landry was always one step ahead. Seriously, many attribute the rise of the modern passing game to Landry's innovation, especially with the development of the shotgun formation, which became a staple in today's game. He wasn't the most vocal or flashy coach, but he was a mastermind who built a dynasty in Dallas, turning the Cowboys into America's team. By the time Landry retired in 1988, his legacy was firmly cemented. 5 Super Bowl appearances, 2 championships, and a coaching style that forever reshaped the NFL. He's remembered not just as a coach, but as one of the architects of modern football, a man whose influence is still felt in the game today. In the end, Landry's story is a reminder that sometimes greatness comes not from being the best player on the field, but from having the vision, the strategy, and the ability to make everyone else around you better. And in Landry's case, that vision turned into a legacy that changed football forever. And finally, we get to Tony Dungy. He went undrafted, but the Pittsburgh Steelers would go on to sign him as a free agent. As a defensive back, in 1978, he intercepted 6 passes and won the Super Bowl with the Steelers. Dungy would only play 1 more season in the league before being cut by the New York Giants during training camp. Although cut, he decided to take a new avenue with the same team, coaching. I guess getting cut as a player sucks a little less when they offer you a job, huh? Dungy quickly transitioned into coaching, making a name for himself as a defensive mastermind. His work with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was nothing short of transformative. Seriously, the Bucs were bottom feeders. They were known for their defensive struggles, but under Dungy's guidance, the team became one of the most dominant defensive units in the league. His innovative approach to the Tampa 2 defense reshaped the way teams approach coverage and pass rushing, and the Bucs soon became perennial playoff contenders. Honestly, Tony Dungy should get credit for the Bucs' Super Bowl after his departure. It was when he took over the Indianapolis Colts in 2002 that Dungy truly cemented his place in NFL history. There, he would work with one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Peyton Manning, to build a juggernaut offense that was balanced with a strong defense led by Dungy's own philosophy. Despite years of playoff heartbreak, Dungy kept his cool, focusing on his team's preparation and mental toughness. Finally, in 2007, his leadership paid off, and he became the first black head coach to win a Super Bowl when the Colts triumphed over the Chicago Bears in Super Bowl 41. His legacy goes beyond his Super Bowl win. It's about the way he redefined coaching, breaking barriers, and proving that sometimes the most effective leaders are the ones who don't need to say a word to make their mark. Dungy wasn't just a good coach, he was a pioneer, a man who led by example and forever changed the coaching landscape of the NFL. So let's get something straight. Some of the best coaches in NFL history weren't exactly lighting it up as players. They didn't need to be Hall of Famers on the field to be legends on the sidelines. It's all about seeing the game differently, understanding it from a deeper level, spotting things most guys miss, and being able to lead, inspire, and get the most out of your squad. Coaching, it's not just about being a great athlete. It's about strategy, preparation, and most importantly, making the guys around you better. Look at guys like Tony Dungy or even Tom Landry. None of them were out there winning MVPs or breaking records as players, but man, they became legends as coaches. They saw the game through a whole different lens, focusing on what they could do to elevate their team, not just relying on physical gifts. It's that mental side of the game that sets apart the great coaches from the great players. These guys prove you don't got to be a star on the field to be a star in the coaching world. It's about adapting, teaching, and inspiring your guys to get the best out of themselves. That's what makes a coach great. What do you think? Did we leave any coaches out? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more NFL content. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.